Hey there, folks. So, today at Mom's House, we are going to be addressing sustainability and gardening. So, what this means for right now is quite relevant to Mom's House. So, I'm going to link some information below on a topic called redlining. So, redlining is a discriminatory practice of denying business loans or loans in certain neighborhoods, and it's a denial for socioeconomic and racial makeup. Why are we visiting this today? Because in many cities, especially in my own, redlining further limits access to fresh, healthful, and nutritious foods for the most at-risk communities. Everyone is welcome at Mom's House, and since there seems to not be enough seats at the proverbial table, if you will, for everyone, Mom and her friends are asking what we can do to feed the people, all of the people. This is the purpose of the garden planning design that I will be discussing in this video as well for a new plot. The plot is located in a redlining district. So the plot and similar productions, community gardens, and organization efforts are spearheaded by a longtime and very, very dear friend of mine named Leo. And Leo has an organization that is called Children Shouldn't Hunger. It is a local grassroots nonprofit. He gets lots of help from the mom in his life, his wife. They are very wonderful people and have very wonderful children. And I love what they do to make sure that everyone and everyone's children get a seat at that table, right? And if we don't have enough seats for each other and for each other's children, then maybe it's time to flip our tables over, right? Let's flip our tables over. Let's talk about new pipelines. Let's talk about new ideas and see what we can do to feed the people. The mission statement for Leo's nonprofit is that they believe neither people nor food should ever go to waste. So I'll drop some links where you can support, please do, CSH, Children Shouldn't Hunger. I will also link their Facebook page. Apologies, I am not really of the generation that is super hip with Instagram. I'll poke around and see what I can find for you all on there as well, but I usually link up with them on Facebook or just text them to see what they have going on. So the raised planter gardens, and I'll get into some of these. I put together a slideshow to incorporate into this video as well. We'll cover some more topics on there and you all can get a little bit more of a visual. The raised planter gardens are already instituted into the model of community garden spaces, similar to an example on a webpage that I will link as well from Country Living. It might be a worthy venture to talk about in some of the community gardens too, to institute some of the spiral stone herb gardens that are from that same source as well. So it might be useful to explore some of the possible logistics of those spiral herb gardens that I will link. I'm also going to be talking about incorporating a species of bird called a barn swallow and putting some barn swallow habitats around his shipping container structures. We'll talk about those in a bit too. Those will be really helpful for pest control. As you know, some pests can be vectors for disease as well. You guys can do a little bit of Googling on that if you want, but I'll link some information about the bird swallows in the description as well. I do have a couple notes about everything that I cover in my presentation, so I want to be sure that I touch on all of those things while we have our chit chat. I am going to have a little bit of coffee because motherhood nor social justice are for the undercaffeinated, and we're tackling a big, heavy, delicate topic today that is very relevant to our area. So cheers for change. And I wanted to talk about another organization as well. You can also follow hashtag Feed the West on Facebook. They are on Instagram as well. You can like and follow Change Today, Change Tomorrow. I will drop their Facebook page in the video description, and you can also donate to hashtag Feed the West via Cash App or Venmo. It is $ change today, change tomorrow, TMW, and you can put hashtag Feed the West in the memo. I wanted to talk about those things when it comes to gardening because with the practice of redlining and businesses moving out of the areas or companies outright denying their loans, what's happening is they are limiting and restricting fresh, healthful, nutritious food options, like I discussed, to the people that are in those communities. And who decides? Who decides that other human beings, right? Other human beings are not worthy of options? What? And one of the things that we talk about at Mom's House is that everyone is welcome, and it's time to break down what we mean by everyone. And I mean everyone who's willing to make space to include other people to live and learn and grow together. And for the sake of these campaigns, that is working together and growing food and other pipelines and other options for people when society or the manufactured environment from society, this is why we've been talking about sustainability so heavily, when society or the manufactured economic systems or physical systems, physical structures are designed to restrict basic needs to other human beings. I think that's pretty whack. I don't know about you guys. So that's what we're talking about at the table today. Because I have a table, I have fresh food available to me, and I checked my privilege at the door this morning, my bedroom door, right? And I understand that I am now in a privileged position, and that is not the way that things have always been, but the community that we're talking about in particular isn't full of white girls like me who may have had a different struggle that was not made more difficult by the color of my skin. And it's important to check our privilege and our prejudices on a daily basis and to ask ourselves what we can do in Mom's house, right? Or maybe in your own house, your own little corner of the world to affect change and hold space for all of people. Because when you hold space for all of people and you acknowledge those differences, you see them. You see them and you see all of them and you see all of who they are, and you have the ability to hold the space to respect and be gentle with other people and to hold space for their pain, their trauma, the things that inherently come from discrimination like redlining on a systemic level. Today, we have decided that that's not okay. We decided a long time ago that that wasn't okay, and that's been an ongoing project for Leo and his family and some of our friends, our mutual friends, for a really long time. And as we talk about the economy, this thing that is built by people, and we talk about problems within our own species, I just kind of want to link back to sustainability as well. There's a TED Talk that is quite poignant, considerate, and thoughtful that I wanted to go over with you guys, and make sure that I link that as well. It's called Cradle to Cradle by William McDonough. I hope I said that right. And it is diversity in full color for all the children of all the species. And so for this garden and this project, the children of our species shouldn't hunger. And we are addressing that with intelligent design, because it's not about all children, all people, all species. It's the ones that need our help right now. That's who we're talking about. Of course, we're all important, but what needs to be given special and important, very delicate, graceful consideration, and the thing that I am going to work to spend every last bit of my privilege doing is spreading this message that these particular groups of people in our species, they shouldn't hunger. They shouldn't go to waste. They should be recognized and celebrated and have space held to do so on a regular basis for everything that makes them them. Are we growing together? Are we building the niches that are mentioned in that cradle to cradle talk for everyone? Are we acknowledging the ones who most need our help, and what are we doing? I'm trying. I'm doing my best. I'm trying to remain open and learn more and do more every day. Are you? Because neither people nor food should ever go to waste, right? That's the mission statement. So I wanted to talk to you, and I'll put it in the description for text copy. So we are looking at a 20 foot by 35 foot space, as well as 3 shipping containers, which are insulated and now have cool bots for temperature control. The cool bots can turn spaces like the shipping containers into what are essentially walk-ins. I know I've talked about food and bev before. I don't know if anybody watching has done food and bev. We all know what a walk-in is. We've probably gone in there, screamed, cried, thrown things, who knows. But they can be used for produce. They will be used for produce and harvesting, storage, collecting things like that to distribute within the community, because it's not right. It's not right what's happening. Plain and simple, all caps, bold, underline, period. It's not okay. So what can we do to change that? So I'll link some information on the cool bots as well if anyone wants to mimic a similar project in their area. Plans are also in the works, and we are still looking to source funding. Again, I will drop a link so that you can donate to Leo and his folks over at CSH, who are far more important and doing far more meaningful work than just my video that I'm doing here about what's going on in the small part that I'm playing to volley up some ideas. So they're still looking to source funding for what's called an NTF system. So NTF systems are to grow hydroponically. I will link some information for how that works in the description as well. Let me make sure I have that link off to the side. I don't know if you all have also seen the video I did on vermiculture or composting. So I also incorporated the red wiggler. I'm just going to pause for some coffee to get her mouth together. So the red wiggler compost and vermiculture with tubes and shoots, I have those incorporated into the garden design for the 20 by 35 foot space, the plot that we're talking about today. And I'll do, like I said, tubes or shoots for scraps perhaps. That is addressed in previous videos. I am suggesting that we place those under the platform and either insulate or move them to an indoor site perhaps during these Midwest winters. Sometimes they happen in March, sometimes they happen in November, sometimes it's not till December, January. So that's something that from a sustainability point of view, that's definitely a weakness of the gardening system that I designed. So maybe we need to look at some opportunities there, because that would definitely be a threat to the system. The vermiculture and composting systems would be very valuable to implement in ongoing projects, or just, even self-contained within this plot, and continuing to grow those, I think would be very helpful. They would be very high value. It would essentially, I think that it was like $4 or $5 for the worms. I bought those local when I did them. So that's something that, we could start for $5 here, $5 there, maybe some straw or something for insulation, and that would be really good for waste as well. The 3-bin composting system will be mentioned also, and then I would like to potentially talk about the opportunities for incorporating that into further future gardening projects. For them, maybe in some of the ones that are a little bit more established. I think that's something that could be very beneficial, because the main disparity that I see is not just in the pipelines or, the systemic injustices that some of you are discovering for the first time, and that's okay. The important fact is that we're learning, right? But I think that a big disparity that often goes unmentioned is shared knowledge. And I think that knowledge is another resource that is frequently hoarded, which is why I started this channel in the first place. And that's something that I wanted to mention again today. I think composting is something that, when a lot of people first hear about it, you picture some guy in Birkenstocks that looks like he's about to go hiking and he's just walking around collecting trash. And there's a lot more to it, and it can bring a lot more value to sustainability projects, growth projects within communities, and, smaller scale environment, and does have a big impact on the environment overall. And I think that that's knowledge worth sharing as well. So I will incorporate all of that, and then I put together some slides. So we'll chit chat about that and some of the content that's on the slides so that you all can see what is available. And then I did like a true early 90s kid, I found an online version of Paint. AutoCAD is not my forte, so I found an online version of MS Paint, if anybody else remembers that, and kind of put together visuals so that we can talk about all the various components, what they'll look like in their implementation. I also pulled together some pictures that Leo was kind enough to send to me, some that he had posted on social media as well, so that you all can get a visual for what they're up to, what it is that they do. If you're local or nearby, maybe you want to help, that would be great. Hands and feet on the ground, getting the kids fed. It's just, that's not a thing that should be negotiable, ever. That people have to fight for food. That people have to fight for others to understand that they are human beings, worthy and deserving of our respect, space, thought, attention, care, consideration, and to have their basic needs met on a regular and reliable basis. And since the systems that are currently in place do not serve that purpose, we are examining today how to give people the knowledge, the tools, the ideas, and the sustainable systems to get what they need. Because neither people nor food should go to waste. I'll be back to check in with my video, and I'll show you all some slides of everything that's going on. Thanks again for coming to Mom's House, and I wanted to remind you all, as always, drink plenty of water, eat something from the earth, bonus points if it's from a community garden, and get some sunshine. If you can't find any sunshine, then go be the sunshine. Thanks for stopping by. So again, today we are delving into a topic, and I already did a video that I will put together with this slideshow to talk to you all about what's going on and what we're doing in our community to create sustainable, long-lasting change. So we are addressing a garden design video today. This is going to be a community garden plot and container plans for the organization Children Shouldn't Hunger. An organization started in 2015, like I said earlier, by a very near and dear friend of mine. He, his wife, and their children put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this nonprofit that makes great things happen for our community, people in need, especially those affected by the issue of redlining. So let's take a look and see what they've got going on. All right, so this is going to be, this is the space that we have been talking about, the 20-foot by 35-foot plot that was donated. Here is what came next. You can see the above ground planters, a platform here, as well as a fence. There's some foliage back here, and we'll get into talking about that here in a moment. Some other photos for reference, as stated. These are some community gardens that were already built and instituted. You can see that they do these in public spaces, and they do a lot of great work to educate children, the public, anyone in the community on gardening, the importance of excuse me, having healthful, nutritious, fresh foods available, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, in these incredibly concentrated communities where these are otherwise unavailable, out of reach, a thing that Leo's determined wasn't okay. And he was going to take the steps necessary to fix it by giving people the knowledge, the tools, and the power to do these things within their community. So here is the platform while I'm on my soapbox about the topic. And as you can see, there's a staircase. It is raised. We'll get to that in a bit, as well as this fence back here and some foliage. We do have some trees that were donated that will be going in. This is the garden design that I talked about a bit earlier. This is going to be, so 2 shipping containers, 20 by 8. This is going to be storage. These are meant to represent fresh leafy greens, any kind of produce, boxes. These blue things on each of the 3 are the cool bots. This is meant to represent fresh fruit, vegetables, food storage, any kind of perishables will go ahead and be put into these as well as the hydroponic system that I mentioned. These little lines are meant to represent the pipes. I will link a description of how that works, why that does what it does, and why this is an important option to incorporate into this plan as well. So these boxes are meant to represent the gardens that are already in place. These little blue marks are going to be fresh water available for some of our pollinators here, here, and here. We'll talk about those in a bit. This I did a video on basic with a model and advanced actual implementation, rainwater harvesting and recapture. I still need to check local ordinances on that topic. We'd like to incorporate those here next to the beds for the reasons mentioned in those videos, so that anyone coming through, or if we have to send volunteers out, if Leo's got to organize some logistics to stop by the sites to distribute water in case there's a drought, a particularly harsh, hot summer, something along those lines, that is available as well. And those have these little gray outlines to indicate that these will likely or probably should be protected in the way that I outlined in my video on the topic. You want to limit as much potentiation for pest species. Pests such as mosquitoes can be vectors for disease anyway, so I'll get to that over here. These are what I think would be a useful placement for the barn swallows, so that they are raised up on potentially that fence. They can pick off of, the food sources here, any kind of pests or bugs that will be crawling around. I believe in the article on the Wildlife Foundation for this species, they mentioned they can eat about 850 bugs. So that would be incredible to keep any kind of pests to the crops or disease vectors to the people coming by, taken care of and under control. I think it would also be a good idea talking about problematic remediation, any weaknesses to the proposed system. We talk about SWOT when we are, covering sustainability topics. One of the weaknesses, again, as I mentioned, would be pests, any sort of pests that are potential disease vectors or could be harmful to the crops. One of the strengths, though, of putting in perhaps a butterfly bush or something, brightly colored flower to attract hummingbirds, or like I said, the butterfly bush over here to get some pollinators, maybe some bees as well in these spaces to kind of, do their thing that they do in the natural environment, maybe across other community gardens or just in general in the area to beef up the foliage, available options, things like that. For the community. So here on the platform, this would actually be below the platform to keep the worms at an ideal temperature. These little brown, that's meant to represent vermicompost, and the red is meant to represent, drumroll, red wigglers. That was also covered in another video. So this would be their little container for them to do their deal, and then chutes or some kind of tubing for people to drop things that they could compost, put in there for the worms, maybe a little bit of signage here or here, some adjacent side therein about what is available to be tossed in for the worms, so that would be kind of a self-containing system, and then the compost can be used in either, fortification of these gardens, other community gardens already in place, or perhaps potential future sites as well. And on the note of composting, also incorporating our 1, 2, and 3 bin compost system. Composting was discussed in another video. I did an example for the Japanese style of composting bokashi. It's 1 bin. It's inside the household, so I will be sure to link some information on the 3 bin compost system as well. Maybe some signage for what would be available for people to toss in this first area, and then maybe some volunteer work on the ground, or just general education on how these things, or these 2 types of composting work. And then, like I said, as well as maybe some signage. And then, if there's any sort of education, seminars, or activity, whatnot going on with how gardening, nutrition, the topics that I've already touched on, how those work. We can talk about composting, get out there, turn these piles, harvest them as well for future projects. And I think that would be a really valuable option to make sure that, especially when using a plot like this, as well as the shipping containers, that this is something that stays self-contained within the organization, so that there's more buying power to do the things that need to be done, right? That would be harnessing as much of the natural environment and what we as people can put into it to ensure that the economic choices that are not necessarily available are something that can become available, right? If we're saving money in these areas by implementing natural, cheap and or free systems, various attraction things, habitats built here as well. So again, I just wanted to highlight the program is Children Shouldn't Hunger. I'll drop some links in the description for where you can follow, see what they're up to, donate, volunteer, help out. This is also the information as promised for Change Today, Change Tomorrow, and hashtag Feed the West to get some resources to the folks that are most heavily impacted by redlining, the closure of grocery stores in these communities. You can get them on Cash App or Venmo, $ Change Today, Change Tomorrow, TMR. To donate to what they have going on. If you just put hashtag Feed the West in the memo as indicated here, they will make sure that the funds get reappropriated to the correct place. And I think that we can really see some long-standing and effectual change here. I look forward to hearing what you all think. And I'll link everything as discussed, as well as some quick notes on each of these ventures and the components of the garden design in the description. Thanks for coming by.